Signed away under extreme duress, this massive British hit was stolen right from under its writer's nose, all thanks to an obscure sample of a classic rock track. Forced to give up 100% of his royalties and credit to songwriters who had nothing to do with the song's composition. I'm telling you, this was a coup contrived by a true musical mob boss. It was one of the most outrageous music industry injustices on record, filled with cutthroat contracts and shady characters. Today's episode will have you rooting for the underdog to win back what was rightfully his. You're going to find out if he does, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if Schoolhouse Rock was part of your formal education, you're going to dig this channel. Nostalgia from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, with interviews with the legend, the story straight from the legends. Make sure to subscribe right now, right below, hit the red button. Promise you'll dig this channel. Check us out on Patreon as well for even more content and to become an insider. Guess what? It's time for another edition of our series, Bottle Lightning, where we celebrate a song or an album that was king for a day or many days. Here we honor artists and bands that rocketed up the charts, but for various reasons weren't able to sustain that success, called by some as one-hit wonders. We celebrate them as lightning in a bottle. In previous episodes, we've covered 99 Luft Balloons by Nina, The Promise by When in Rome, and No Rain by Blind Melon. But for today's entry, we're going to go behind one of the greatest songs of the last 30 years. Every now and again, you hear a song for the very first time, and it's perfect balance of breathtaking music and thought-provoking poetry immediately envelop your senses. And the song goes so deep, it's in your blood, and it inspires you to look at the world through new eyes. That's what this song was for me. Today we solve the intricate mysteries of Bittersweet Symphony by British indie rockers, the Verve. It's a bittersweet symphony. Now before we do that, let's rewind to October 1995, when a new British import officially reached the shores of the US. Oasis's acclaimed album, What's the Story, Morning Glory. You're my wonderwall. This band and that album would capture America's full attention as the early 90s so-called grunge sound started to die down. Oasis and contemporaries like Blur and Suede and Pulp, they were all part of a growing, uniquely British sound that was coined Britpop. Certainly much brighter than Nirvana or Pearl Jam. Britpop also emphasized, Britishness. For many Americans, Oasis were the flag bearers of the movement. But there were several other Britpop bands and songs that found success in the States. The aforementioned Blur released Song 2 in April of 97. That reached number 6 on the US alternative chart. Elastica's Connection reached number 2 on the same chart in October 94. And Republica's 96 release, Ready to Go, that reached number 7. However, it seemed by 97, Britpop was kind of running out of steam. Even Oasis's follow-up album, Be Here Now, couldn't keep the party going for too long. But for Americans and listeners around the world, there would be at least one more signature entry into the Britpop canon. To me, the crown jewel of the movement, Bittersweet Symphony by the Verve. Even the Verve didn't break into the mainstream until the tail end of this latest British invasion. They were by no means a new band. Originally formed in 1989 in Northern England, they were initially known as just Verve. However, that changed when an American jazz label with the same name threatened to sue. Subsequently, the band added a definite article to their name, becoming Ever After the Verve. Led by vocalist Richard Ashcroft, the original lineup also consisted of guitarist Nick McCobb, bassist Simon Jones, and there was drummer Pete Salisbury. In 1992 and 1993, the Verve issued 2 EPs before releasing their first full-length record, A Storm in Heaven. That charted at number 27 on the UK album chart. Next, 1995's A Northern Soul. That went to number 13 in the UK. However, shortly after its release, Ashcroft left the band when tensions with guitarist Nick McCabe boiled over, only to reform shortly afterwards with Simon Tong on guitar. Now, ultimately, though, McCabe's absence proved detrimental to the Verve sound, forestalling the completion of 1997's aptly named Urban Hymns. And after 18 months apart, Ashcroft invited him back into the fold. The 5-piece then finished their 3rd studio album. That was in early 1997. Did you get all that? On June 16, 1997, they released Bittersweet Symphony. The lead single hit the ground running, reaching number 2 in the UK and also breaking the band in the US as well. It rose to number 12 in the Hot 100, and it went to number 4 on the alternative airplay chart. Now, internationally, Bittersweet Symphony reached the top 20 across the world. It also went to number 10 in Sweden. It went to number 9 in Norway, number 7 in Italy, 6 in Finland, 5 in Canada, went to number 3 in Ireland, and number 2 in Spain and Iceland. Urban Hymns, for its part, reached number 23 on the US albums chart, and it went top 15 in at least 15 different countries. Went to number 1 in the UK, Sweden, New Zealand, and Ireland. 3 other singles received airplay, including the number 1 UK hit, The Drugs Don't Work, Lucky Man, and Sonnet. Richard Ashcroft, Bittersweet Symphony's sole songwriter, he crafted the song over a period of 2 years. The result captured a unique mix of despondency, determination, and victory. Because it's a bittersweet symphony that's life. Trying to make ends meet, you're a slave to money, then you die. His portrayal of struggling against apathy, that was at least inspired partly by his own father, who worked as a disaffected office clerk and then suddenly died from a brain hemorrhage. Richard was only 11 at that time. Those honest lyrics, drawn from personal and painful experience, have ultimately resonated with millions around the world who struggle daily to survive, hoping to carve out a better life for themselves and their families. Throughout the song, Ashcroft explores the idea of whether we're able to change our circumstances or if we're just constrained by our own societal systems. His thought-provoking lyrics paint a grim but hopeful picture, utilizing the street as an apt symbol for life. I'll take you down the only road I've ever been down. The one that takes you to the place where all the veins meet. See the places where all the veins meet, yeah. And yet, despite the touches of discontent, the music itself, particularly the string arrangements, they somehow leave you feeling like a champion. They make you feel awesome. Those strings, they don't give up for a second, driving home the truth that there's always beauty to be found in this world, even in the darkest hours. It's a concept that actually epitomizes the tragic and unbelievable history of this song. One that would leave Richard Ashcroft without control over his greatest creation for decades. And it all starts with Ashcroft listening to the orchestral version of the Rolling Stones' #1 UK hit, The Last Time. As we go into this bittersweet adventure, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni. Eyewear, the only glasses I wear. They support our mission of keeping the music alive. The name of the game with Zenni is variety. You can design 3 to 4 pairs of glasses, different colors, different styles, and you can have them delivered right to your door for less than the price of concert tickets. Check it out today at Zenni.com. Written by David Whittaker and recorded in 1965 by Stones manager Andrew Oldham. This instrumental take on The Last Time It landed on the album The Rolling Stones Songbook. Decades later, Ashcroft found himself smitten with the song to the point that he wanted to incorporate a portion of it into Bittersweet Symphony. Said Ashcroft about it, I had found the Andrew Oldham recording in Manchester, and I just kept playing this little bit where everything just kicked in, and the possibilities just seemed incredible. End of quote. The Verve eventually layered something like, 50 tracks of instrumentation into Bittersweet Symphony, including the last time sample, and that is where the trouble started. And here's the thing, these guys did their due diligence. They agreed to license a 5-note sample of the recording in exchange for 50% of the royalties. The band obtained that permission from Decca Records. Unfortunately, the music industry is, of course, more complex and more often than not unforgiving. Because although the Verve cleared things with Decca, they hadn't thought about Alan Klein and Abco Records, who also owned the rights to the song. When the Verve's representatives finally approached Alan Klein, things took a turn for the worse. Manager Jazz Summers called Abco to negotiate publishing rights for the sample, only to find out from their label that they'd already made a lowball offer. And that hadn't gone well, and Jazz was then informed that Alan Klein didn't appreciate people stealing his music. So Summers passed the buck to Ken Berry, head of EMI Records, who met with Klein in person. After Berry played Klein the completed Verve album, it was pretty obvious that Bittersweet Symphony was the lead single. Trying to appeal to Alan Klein's sense of decency, Berry hoped it would be apparent just how badly they needed a license for that particular sample. Problem was, of course, that Ken's tactic completely backfired. Alan Klein reiterated his stance, there's no sampling of our music, we just don't believe in it. And then a day or two later, he moved in for the kill. Realizing that the band was in a bind and that he was holding all the cards, Klein phoned Berry with a lopsided offer. They could have the rights to the sample, but Richard Ashcroft would have to sell his rights as a lyricist to Abco, the record label, and they would be the solitary publisher of Bittersweet Symphony. No two ways about it, the Verve were backed in a corner. So a bargain was struck and Urban Hymns was released. However, once Bittersweet Symphony started tearing up the charts, Alan Klein slapped a lawsuit on the band for plagiarism, claiming that they were in breach of their contract. Allegedly, they had used a larger portion of the sample than was agreed upon. Something that Ashcroft and his bandmates vehemently denied. But thinking it would be less expensive than going to court, the Verve chose to settle with Abco, Alan Klein. Klein demanded all the song's royalties go to him. Said Ashcroft, Alan Klein told us that nothing could be sold until I signed away 100% of the song. So I was forced to sign Bittersweet Symphony away for $1, including the lyrics as well. I was held to ransom. The sad irony was that the Verve were being played at every turn. I mean, never mind that the sample lifted from the Oldham recording was so buried in the music that Bittersweet Symphony didn't sound a bit like the original Stones song. Klein was going to empty their pockets any way he could. Tactics that he'd actually used before with George Harrison. It's another story for another day. As if things couldn't get worse, the Verve would also be sued by Andrew Loog Oldham for $1.7 million in 1999. Oldham owned the copyright on the sampled sound recording. That's a whole other story. Let's just say all hell had broken loose for the Verve. But maybe the most bitter twist in this story is when you realize that the Rolling Stones reps should have never owned the sample in the first place. That's because the Stones, the last time, drew heavily from another song, much more than the Verve ever took from them. The song? This may be the last time by a gospel and R&B group called Staple Singers. And curiously, the Staple Singers never received any royalties from the Rolling Stones. Ashcroft, comparing Staple Singers' version to that of the Rolling Stones, said, guess what? It's got the same lyrics and the same melody. Well, this could be the last time. But the Staple Singers said it was a traditional song. which means that over many years it's been passed along through churches and whatever else. That means when it comes down to it, even the staple singers had created an adaptation of the song. And since the song's origins have been, to history, no one can morally claim authorship and anyone should be free to sample it. Well, I'm sorry, girl, but I can't stay. I wish I could say that the injustice ended there, but the hits just kept coming for the Verve. In the worst way. Not only were they not earning money from their biggest song, they were also stripped from controlling its destiny. Unsurprisingly, it wasn't long before corporate America came looking to capitalize. It started with Nike in 1998. The shoe giant wanted to use Bittersweet Symphony in their multi-million-dollar I Can ad campaign, and they did, despite the Verve's objections.
I could be anything, I could do anything on the field.
According to Ashcroft, having his songs used in commercials was the last thing in the world that he wanted. When they were approached about using the song, they flat out refused to grant Nike permission. However, Alan Klein, he was happy to oblige, for the right price, of course. So the song was used anyway. After that, ABKCO actively exploited the composition, licensing it to the highest bidders. The bogus deal allowed this record label to sell the song's rights to any advertiser who was willing to empty their pockets. It was a bitter pill to swallow. That being said, I should point out that the Verve did benefit in at least one way from all of this. Though they saw these ads as prostitution, the silver lining was that they did create a massive visibility for the band. For instance, 2 weeks after Nike's commercial debuted during the NFL playoffs, Urban Hymns jumped 34 spots on the Billboard 200, reaching number 36. Ultimately, it would climb, like I said, another 13 spots to number 23, where it peaked. Verve manager Jazz Summers conceded that the ad may have powered the Verve's U.S. breakthrough. He said, if this music is being played during football games and 20 million people are listening to it for a minute, it's going to have an effect. Yes, exposure was good, but the band wanted it to come another way. There's one more sucker punch that I have to mention. Can you believe this? And then maybe we can stop the bleeding. In 1999, Bittersweet Symphony was nominated for Best Rock Song at the Grammys. They ended up losing out to Alanis Morissette's Uninvited. Now listen, no offense to Alanis. I love her. I love her music. But Bittersweet Symphony is a once-in-a-lifetime song. No change, I can change, I can change, I can change. However, that wasn't the biggest blow. It was the fact that Mick Jagger and Keith Richards' names were on the ballot alongside Ashcroft's. That thanks to Klein's Killer Instinct negotiation skills. That's a pretty good deal considering that Jagger and Richards had nothing to do with the song. Clearly annoyed, Ashcroft quipped that it was the best song that Jagger and Richards have written in 20 years. Which is hilarious. Without a doubt, one important reason for Bittersweet Symphony's success and iconic status is thanks to its music video, which received heavy rotation on MTV. Perfectly complementing the lyrics, the video shows Ashcroft singing as he walks down Hoxton Street in North London. The sidewalk is teeming with people passing by, all engrossed in their daily activities. But as Richard moves forward, he bumps into everyone who crosses his path, completely oblivious. Striding with a purpose and hyper-focused determination, Ashcroft at one point even walks over the hood of some girl's car. The video was shot over 2 days, and it had Ashcroft strolling down Hoxton Street some 400 times. It's no wonder that you can see an authentic mix of exhaustion and purpose on Ashcroft's face. Bittersweet Symphony has appeared in several movies and TV shows. There was Cruel Intentions in 1999, The Simpsons in 2008, Silent Witness in 2012, and The Death and Life of John F. Donovan in 2018. It's also been covered by Live in 2000, the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in 2002, Oasis did in 2002, Coldplay in 2005. John Mayer's done it, Howie Day, Kelly Clarkson. The Knox featuring Foster the People and Liz Phair and Lisa Loeb just recently. It's also been covered multiple times by Switchfoot and One Republic, a lot of people. So Ashcroft doesn't know how much he lost when Bittersweet Symphony was stolen from him. Of course, with Urban Hymns going platinum in the US and selling over 4 million copies in Europe, it was a lot more than pocket change, let's just say. Add to that a number of high-profile placements and ads and movies and things. Bittersweet Symphony, yeah, there's no doubt that the sum was substantial. Admittedly, Richard's initial response to the loss of his song was something a lot of us may have done in his place. That is, put his fist through a door or two. However, for Ashcroft, there has been a happy ending of sorts, beginning with his own perspective. Opting for the high road, he later said, "The way I see it now, it's clear in my head. There's no time anymore for me to be bitter about it. I'm moving on. I was in a no-win situation. But this song deserved to be heard. The song was bigger than me. It was bigger than the band. The song's for the people. It's not about keeping things back because you're not going to make £1 million." End of quote. For Richard, it was always about the music, not being a slave to the money. The good news is that after 2 decades, this is back in 2019, Ashcroft entered into negotiations with Alan Klein's son and Stone's manager Joey Smith for ownership of the song. And the matter was finally settled. Said Ashcroft, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards signed over all their publishing for Bittersweet Symphony, which was a truly kind and magnanimous thing for them to do. I never had a personal beef with the Stones. They've always been the greatest rock and roll band in the world. It's been a fantastic development. It's life-affirming in a way. And one of the greatest injustices in modern musical history, you have to tip your hat to Richard Ashcroft. Most anyone would have let the bitterness and the injustice burn a hole in their soul. But he was strong. You think about it. The song actually became a reality in its own history. It's a song that has the distinction of a vicious circle where art imitated life and then life imitated art and on and on and on. Yet in the end, Richard Ashcroft didn't accept that reality. He kept his integrity. He kept his faith. He persevered, writing a new end to a bittersweet symphony. Leave us a comment about the Verve and Bittersweet Symphony. What do you remember about this Bottle Lightning classic? Let us know in the comments below. If you dig our content, make sure that you subscribe right below. Hit the red button so you never miss out on our videos. We love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.